Good afternoon. In uniting in a meditation such as we have just done, it is wise to drop from your thought every person, every condition, and consciously remember that you are uniting in this meditation with your source, so that the oneness that exists as I and the Father shall become a visible, tangible experience. I and my Father are one. This is the relationship that already exists between our source and our individual selfhood. But until this is consciously realized, it is, of course, of no value to us. It is only in our conscious realization of that oneness that the qualities, activities, and quantities of God become those of our individual being. There never has been a break in the relationship between God and His Son. On the other hand, there never has been a contact between a mortal, a human being, and God. And therefore, it is only in our meditation that we rise in consciousness out of our humanhood into our spiritual nature. You cannot carry your humanhood into the kingdom of God. You cannot carry even your good humanhood into the kingdom of God, as the Master revealed when he said that the least of these would enter heaven before John the Baptist, in spite of the fact that John the Baptist was the greatest of the Hebrew prophets. Because John the Baptist was strictly a human being, strictly a good human being, strictly a man visualizing even greater human good, but never catching the vision of spiritual identity. And so it is that you will not bring your humanhood into God, but as you leave your humanhood parked outside, you will find your spiritual identity one with God, and then you will discover your own real spiritual identity. And you will wonder then that you ever were satisfied with your old human self, which you will now recognize to be but a composite of some measure of human good and some measure of human bad. But even the greatest amount of human good will no longer satisfy you. When, in your meditation, you leave your humanhood outside and you leave out the humanhood of all others, and dwell in that word I and my Father, I and my source, I and the kingdom of heaven, I receiving the bread of life, spiritual bread, I receiving spiritual meat and spiritual wine and spiritual water. I receiving God's grace because of my oneness with the source. In this oneness, all that the Father hath is mine. All good, all spiritual good is flowing from the spiritual source through me. Just as life is flowing through the tree in the garden because of the tree's oneness with the soil through which this life of nature is pouring. All of the life of the entire earth is pouring itself into every root that is planted in it. And up through the roots into the body. And so as we find ourselves centered in God, planted in God, established in God, all of the spiritual life and being of God flows through us. Now you see, by leaving our humanhood out, and by leaving the humanhood of all others out, we are enabled to enter the spiritual kingdom. And while we are inside here, just I and my Father, I myself, I my spiritual self, I and my Father, all that the Father is, I am. All that the Father hath is mine. God's grace is my sufficiency. God's spiritual grace, God's spiritual presence, God's spiritual activity is the substance of my whole being, the law and the activity unto my whole being. And we in this meditation continue to commune with the Father in this way. Through our consciousness, we are receiving divine grace. Through this consciousness of our oneness, we are being spiritually fed and spiritually housed and spiritually clothed and spiritually guided. The wisdom of God is pouring into us as our wisdom. The harmony of God is pouring into us as our harmony. So that we recognize I have no wisdom of my own. It is the wisdom of God that is pouring itself into me and through me and has become my wisdom. I have no life of my own. Therefore, by my very oneness with God, the life of God has become my individual life, and therefore I am eternal. I am immortal by virtue of the fact that God's life is mine. I and my Father are one in this meditation. Therefore, I am communing with the Father, with my source. And this proves omnipresence, that where God is, I am, that where God is, I am, where I am, God is. We are inseparable and indivisible, for we are one. And this is the meaning of omnipresence. I am ever present with God as God is ever present with me. In this oneness, neither life nor death can separate me from this life of God or love of God or care of God. For I, in my oneness with God, am consciously established in Him and He in me. And so I understand omniscience. The knowledge of God is my knowledge. Because if I and my Father are one, then the Father's knowledge is the only knowledge present where I am. And therefore, I have all of the knowledge and wisdom of God as mine. Therefore, all wisdom is present where I am. All wisdom is present where I am. All presence is present where I am. This is omnipresence. It means my all presence in God, as well as God's all presence in me. It means the spiritual infinity of my wisdom, because of God's wisdom in me. And then this reveals omnipotence, that where I am, all power is. Because God is where I am, and God is omnipotence. Therefore, God is the omnipotence of my being. I can never be separated from omnipotence, omnipresence, or omniscience, because I am in and of God as God is in and of me. We are one, indestructible, indivisible, one. And all this I realize as I realize I and my Father are one. I in Him and He in me, one. And then, with this realization, comes the awareness that you are right where I am, and I am right where you are. Though we may be separated by continents and oceans, though we may be separated by what the world calls life and death, yet I am where you are, and you are where I am, for we are one in God. Since I am present in God, this must be the universal relationship of the children of God. Therefore, when you are in meditation, in the realization of your oneness with God, you are present where I am, and I am present where you are. And all of the sons and all of the daughters of God are united in one place, in one time, here and now. My oneness with God constitutes my oneness with you, who are united in God. Your conscious oneness with God constitutes your oneness with every spiritual child of God of the past, the present, and the future. In your consciousness at this very moment, in your consciousness at this very moment, is embodied the consciousness of every great spiritual revelator who has ever lived. You have right now present in your consciousness the consciousness of Krishna, of Buddha, of Lao Tzu, of Moses, of Elijah, of Isaiah, of Jesus, of John, of Paul. Each one of these is embodied in your consciousness right now. You are one with them, and they are one with you, because we are all one in and of God. All of the wisdom that ever flowed through these men was the wisdom of God, which came about because of their recognition of their oneness with their source, God. All of the wisdom of the ages will flow through your consciousness. The same wisdom that revealed itself to these before will now reveal itself to you, because you are one with them in consciousness. You have united with them by uniting with me, by uniting with God. We are all in one place in the kingdom of God by virtue of our consciously uniting ourselves with our source. We now find ourselves united with every individual of the past, present, and future who is united with the source. You are now, in this moment, of the household of God. By repeating that word, I, you are separating yourself from your humanhood, and you are uniting yourself with your source. I, the I am which is God, is one. The I am of God is the I am that I am. And because of our uniting ourselves in God, do not forget that you have united yourself with each other, with each of us. All that God is and has is now permeating your consciousness as you realize I and my Father are one. All that has ever imparted itself to the spiritual saints and seers of all ages is now imparting itself to you, for we are all united in this one consciousness. We are all being fed by the same spiritual light. We are all drinking of the same spiritual fountain of water, eating the same spiritual meat, the same spiritual bread. We are all drinking the same spiritual wine, for we are being fed from within. Now you will understand. Listen. I, and repeat that word within yourself. I have meat the world knows not of. I can give you water. When you drink of it, you will never thirst again. This I that you have declared, I have meat the world knows not of. I have hidden manna. In my communion with my source, I now realize that I am united with God. I am united with the source of all good. Therefore, I have received all that the Father has given me. I have 12 baskets full to share. The Father's love I have. The Father's wisdom I have. The Father's infinite substance I have. The Father's divine grace I have. I have meat the world knows not of. I have hidden manna. In this inner communion only are you being spiritually fed, spiritually sated, satisfied, completed, perfected. Only in this inner communion with the Father do you receive divine grace. Only because you have left your humanhood outside and you have just declared the I of your being. I, me, myself, I and my Father are one. In this oneness, I recognize my oneness with my spiritual brothers and sisters universally. I realize that they too are fed and satisfied from this same source. I recognize that they too are of the household of God. I realize now why no weapon that is formed against them shall prosper. This never was addressed to the human race. There have been many weapons that have been used destructively against the human race. And as long as there is a human race, there will be. But I see now that no weapon that is ever formed against the Christ can prosper. No weapon that is ever formed against the I that I am can prosper. Why? Because I am hid with Christ in God in this spiritual communion. I live and move and have my being in this inner communion with God. I walk about on the earth. I am in the earth, in the world, but not of it, because I am living my hidden life in this inner communion. I am not visible to the people of earth. They behold only my body. But I remain hid with Christ in God in this inner communion. And the more I realize that I, in the midst of me, is centered in God, the less do the people of the world even know of my existence? They pass me right by on the street and do not know me. For to them I am but just another body. But my spiritual brethren and my spiritual sisters all know me, recognize me, love me as I love them, for it is God's love flowing through all of us, in each other, through each other. It was promised aforetime, come up to this high mountain and look about in all directions, and all of the land that your eyes can see, I give to you. Now, this was never said to a human being. It was never meant to be understood as being the truth about human beings. This was the promise of God to his beloved Son, which I am, which thou art, as long as you maintain yourself in this inner communion, in this I-ness, in this withinness, in this oneness, in this livingness, in the inner spirit. My body walks about the earth, but I live in God. I live in an inner communion within myself, ever realizing that I and my Father are one, and that I and my spiritual brothers and my spiritual sisters are one. And these may be human brothers and sisters. They may be animal brothers and sisters. They may be vegetable or mineral brothers and sisters. Because all of this universe, as far as my eyes can see from the highest mountain, has been given unto me. Son, all that I am thou art. All that I have is thine. This land give I unto thee. This whole universe is given unto the spiritual children of God, and we are heirs, joint heirs to all of the heavenly riches. In our I-ness, in the degree that I live and move and have my being in this inner communion with my source, always remembering that I am I. What the world sees is a body. Even what I see when I look in a mirror is just a body. But this is not me. I live and move and have my being in this meditation. I live and have my being in this inner communion with my Father, in spirit, with the Spirit. I live in an inner communion with the sons and daughters of God, for we are one family, one household. We are drawn together from the uttermost parts of the earth that we may unite in a conscious union with our Father. And even now, our spiritual brothers and sisters at the opposite ends of the globe and all of the points in between are united with us right here in this spirit, in this consciousness. For where I am, they are. And where they are, I am. We are united in consciousness. And all that the Father hath is mine and theirs. For we are heirs, joint heirs, to all the heavenly riches. As long as I live in this inner communion with my Father and permit myself to be spiritually fed, spiritually satisfied, spiritually wisdomed, then I can move about in the world, experience any experience as a sufferer to be so now, but always realize I have left the world. My kingdom, the Christ kingdom, is not of this world. And you, students of the infinite way, must prepare yourselves to leave this world. And that does not mean to go any place. It does not mean to separate yourselves from your families or your homeland. It means to separate yourself from the laws of good and evil that operate in the world of mankind. Unite yourself with the spiritual laws of God that are always available to you within yourself, that you may live by grace, not by the law. You will be saddened at times as the Master was. O Jerusalem, I would take you with me into this glorious kingdom. And so you will say inwardly to members of your family, your friends, your countrymen, oh, how I would love to take you into this inner kingdom with me, to be refreshed within, to be reborn within, to come to the realization that ye need not fight. The battle is not yours. Ye need not take thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, or wherewithal ye shall be clothed. I have meat. Ye have, if you will come within and recognize the source within. I have a hidden manna, a divine grace. It is yours if you can open your consciousness and learn to come within and dwell with me within. Be at peace with me. Let me dwell in you. Let my word dwell in you. How can you do this except in silence? In silent communion. Come apart from the world. Even while performing your tasks in the world, consciously withdraw within and realize that you really live at the center of your being. And it is there at the center of your being that you are receiving the meat, the wine, the bread, the water, the divine grace of heaven. You are not earning your living by your work. You are being spiritually maintained at the center of your being. But you must abide there. You must abide in me. You must abide within. You must remember. You must never forget. I. Oh, when you feel that word I at the center of your being and find that right there at the center of your being, that I is one with the I that I am, which is God. It is all one I. The great I coming to individual focus at the center of your being. And that I, which is God, at the center of your being, is your grace, is your hidden manna. That word I becomes, oh, it is a secret word. It is a sacred word. It must be used very sparingly on the lips. Because the I that comes through the lips really means a human identity that is full of good and sometimes full of evil. And it isn't that I. The I that I speak of is the I that I secretly and sacredly hold at the center of my being. It is the I which is the very offspring of God, never born, never dying. It has come into this earthly scene for some purpose of God's. The human world has not known this, and it thought that it was just born into 80 years and 10 of more or less striving and struggling for survival. This is only because the original function of life was lost to memory, forgotten. But now, as you come to conscious remembrance of the I at the center of your being, that I which I really am, you will know that the Master said, "Call no man on earth your father," so that you may come back to conscious remembrance that the Father sent you into expression to fulfill some purpose of the Father. Even humanly, when parents have children, they really have something in mind that they believe or hope that their child is going to fulfill. It doesn't always happen, but at least they have that dream. But the reason they do is that this is the truth about the original purpose of our birth. The Father, in sending himself into expression as our individual form, had for us a purpose. What that purpose is will only be revealed to you as you return to the contemplative life, the life of inner contemplation, the life of inner communion. When you are again on such terms with your Father that you can commune at will, and the Father again can reveal his purpose in you, which will not be before you are capable of fulfilling it. Do not expect that in some meditation God will reveal your purpose on earth to you while you are still in the position where you will say, well, what can I do about it? I have to work for a living, or I have a family. Live your life of inner communion, knowing that the day must come when the Father reveal his plan to you, his plan for you. And in that moment, the capacity to fulfill it will be instantly available. The rosebud does not open to become a rose until it has the capacity to be a rose. It does not even receive the impulse to be a rose until it has the capacity to be a rose. And as the capacity matures, so does the bud open to fulfill itself as a rose. As our inner communion establishes within us a capacity to be the son and daughter of God, so does the divine plan reveal itself and our opening begins. The Master says, if I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. Is it not clear that as long as you have a teacher, a practitioner who is a mediator, that you are not going to receive the full fruitage of the Christ revelation? Do you not see that as long as your faith, hope, confidence is external to yourself, even if you are placing your faith in a God, you're going to miss the way? Until you have released even God, the Comforter cannot come to you. As long as you have hope or reliance in a visible man, a visible book, even a thought, the Comforter, the divine wisdom cannot come to you. It is only when you can meditate as we are meditating today, completely separate from each other, completely separate from reliance on each other, and returning to that I and my Father within. Retiring into an inner wisdom, an inner stillness, an inner peace, an inner quiet, an inner confidence, an inner realization of an I, deep down within me, I, this is my meat. I am the bread. I am the meat. I am the water. I am the wine. This this blessed I, which is the Son of God within me, this I is my hidden manna. Then the Comforter springs forth from within me, teaches me, comforts me, heals me, reveals the allness of being. Then only can I adequately know how grateful I am to every spiritual master of all ages. For not one true spiritual master has ever bound us to his human identity, to his human selfhood, or to his human organization. Not one. Every spiritual master has shared the wisdom of the Father and set us free. The disciples were in fear that their master would leave them. Therefore, he said, if I go not away. And he spoke of the same I. Well, actually, the experience happened before. The experience happened back in the days of Moses. You see, Moses led the children of Israel to the promised land. For some reason, Scripture has falsely misinterpreted the event that took place there. And they feel that Moses was not capable of leading the Hebrews into the promised land. But you see, the falseness of this is revealed in the fact that it is said of Moses that he did not die, he was translated. Therefore, there could have been no fault in Moses. The real secret is this: no master can take you into the promised land, only up to the promised land. And then you must enter by the eye, the recognition of your own identity. You can only enter this promised land on the recognition of your Christhood. It is a wonderful thing on your journey to recognize the Christhood of Moses or of Jesus. It is wonderful if you have recognized the Christhood of my identity, of my being. But you will only enter the promised land when you recognize the Christhood of your being. When you realize, I in the midst of me am the Son of God. I in the midst of me am one with the Father. And all that the Father is, I am. And all that the Father hath is mine. When you realize this, you will enter the promised land. It will not be that your teacher deserted you. It will not be that your teacher wasn't worthy to enter with you. It is only that your teacher entered before you. And you must be left at the entrance to the promised land until you yourself grasp the principle, realize the truth. I and my Father are one. The Christhood manifested by Moses, Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jesus, John, Paul, that sonship is mine. Because sonship is a universal relationship. No human is the Son of God, and you never would become the Son of God in your humanhood. But when you retire within yourself and learn to live in communion with the I that is within you, you will then leave your humanhood outside, and you will tabernacle with your own Christhood and with the Christhood of all who have been before you, because you will then find yourself at one with the Christ of every individual who has been, who is now, and who will be. Others will still see your body and think of you merely as a human being, the unenlightened. But the enlightened will always recognize you. The enlightened will always know who you are. The enlightened will always be in your company, and you in theirs. You will draw unto yourself the spiritually illumined of the world. You will become separate and apart from man whose breath is in his nostril, and yet remain in the world where your influence is necessary. Not necessarily the spoken word, but the hidden word that is in the midst of you. I would bring to you the word spiritual fellowship. Of course, you will learn through the two great passages in Matthew 25 well, now I don't know if it's Matthew 25 or Matthew 31. The two great passages of, inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these my brethren, I think it is Matthew 25, you have done it unto me. Or, inasmuch as ye have not done it unto the least of these my brethren, ye have not done it unto me. In these passages you will learn that you have a relationship with all people of the earth, regardless of their religious or non-religious convictions. And that is that insofar as it is possible to help meet their need at their level of life, that is, that it is expected of you that you will support your local charities. It is expected of you that you will support those citywide or nationwide benevolences that help those who are needy. It is expected of you that in any way in which you find it possible that you extend a helping hand to others on their level of consciousness, even as the man on the road to Jericho ministered unto the sick one. But beyond this, there is a spiritual fellowship with those who are of the household of God. And this is quite different. This is the product of an experience that you have when you meet those who are of the household of God, when you recognize your oneness with them, your common interest. You feel a spiritual bond, and something drops away from your relationship with them, something that is human. In fact, all that is human drops away. And you have the feeling of kinship with them, and yet nothing that seems to partake of human feelings or emotions. You will notice this for yourself. When you are in the company of those who have received some spiritual light, and you notice that they do not indulge the ordinary conversation, condemnation, criticism, judgment, or that there is a greater expression of patience, sharing, joy, you will notice that there is something about a spiritual relationship that differs from any human relationship. And it is because of this that the moment the humanness drops out of our relationship with each other, we begin feeding each other spiritually. This is what the Master referred to. Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? Could ye not watch with me 1 hour? No. They had to indulge humanness. Probably they were indulging self-pity because he was to leave them. Perhaps they were even feeling sorry for him which is a horrible thing to do to another spiritual person, to feel sorry for them or pity them. Because you're not helping to bear their burden, you're adding to it. What you give unto each other is not pity, is not sorrow, is not grief, is not even the very human thought of, oh, how I'll miss you. This adds to our burdens. Can you not watch with me 1 hour and be spiritual and realize that God constitutes my life and being, and I am not going anyplace? No weapon that is formed against the Son of God shall prosper. What are you grieving about? What are you sorrowing for? What are you wearying about? Because you have let yourself become human. You have allowed yourself to indulge a human love. Whereas all I want of you is an awareness of my spiritual identity, that I may in turn be aware of your spiritual identity. Can I help you spiritually while I pity you? Or while I feel sad at leaving you, or you are leaving me? This is an indulgence of human sense. I and my Father are one, and I and your spiritual identity is one, and we are never going to be separate or apart from each other. Not as long as I maintain you in my consciousness, you maintain me in your consciousness, we will always be one, and I will always be sharing my I-ness, my spiritual substance with you. And then you can be sharing your spiritual substance with me or with anyone else who may need it. But in the moment that we start to be human, then I will have to say too, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Did you have to go and get human again? You see, we have entered the mystical path. The mystical path is a recognition of God as the only I that is. The only I that exists. And therefore, the I of me. The I of you. And in proportion as I come into communion with the I of me, I attain my Christhood. And I am able to lift you up, you who are receptive and responsive, at least to the entrance to the promised land. I cannot enter you into the promised land. Even Jesus could not do that for his disciples. Only lead you to the entrance to the promised land, to the heavenly kingdom. And then you enter with the password. And the password is, thank you, Father, I am. I and my Father are one. I and my spiritual brothers and sisters are one. There is but one Father, one family, one household of God, one infinite being, infinitely manifested. And I am He. I in the midst of me. Thank you